Welcome back, folks. We got another great show for you today. We're joined today by a powerhouse in the industry, Ian Giles. His reputation precedes him, and he's here today to talk to us about something a little different of the state of payroll, right? Welcome to the show, Ian Giles.
Thanks very much, Brian. It's really great to be here today. I'm looking forward to this one. I love talking about payroll. It's my life. I've made a living out of it for the last 25 years. It's something that not a lot of people think about. They get paid at the end of their payroll cycle. They're happy bunnies because their money's in the bank. They can pay the bills and all that kind of stuff. There's a huge amount of work that goes into it.
That's right.
Under the radar.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And before we get into your story, Ian, Walter, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. I'm excited for Ian to be with us, give us a part of his valuable time, and to learn more about him and to discuss the state of payroll as we stated, because I think it's important to discuss these things.
Absolutely. So tell us, Ian, how'd you get into payroll? We always love hearing origin stories.
I don't think my story, the whole of my story, is probably different to a lot of people, but I don't think the start of my payroll career is different to anybody else. There isn't careers fair. There isn't a payroll stand at that imaginary careers fair. I fell into it just like everybody else. I mean, I would say that I was invited into payroll. I started out in the cinema industry. I opened new cinemas. I did red carpet events. I got to meet all kinds of people. One of my claims to fame is that I got to look after Richard Attenborough for the day many years ago. I then got into recruitment, moved away from all that glamour, and ended up putting in probably 1,000 temporary workers a day into clients' warehousing, distribution centers, and payroll was a very large part of that. I was asked to become the payroll manager, and the rest, quite frankly, is history. Back in the day, payroll was very different. It has come along in lots of ways, but we're still behind so many other functions within business, and it's time to get our seat on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And for the listeners who don't know, Richard Attenborough is a famous actor, right? And he was, from what I could see, he was in Jurassic Park, for the folks in the US would know, but many movies to his claim. So that was very cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell us, what is it that motivates you to talk about the state of payroll? Because me and Walter were talking about this, and he felt like you had a very different take on what you wanted to share with us and really the payroll community.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I've worked in all manner of businesses, startup and matrixed environments. I've worked in retail and beauty through to aerospace. And I suppose there's one thing that really rings through in absolutely every single part of that. We're seen as a necessary function, something that has to be there to get people paid. We have, like I say, we've come a long way. We no longer need to work in offices. We work in a hybrid fashion. We work in a remote fashion. I remember going back to the day where payroll had its own tiny little office, or it was at the back of a much larger office. We sat in a classroom style environment. Nobody could enter the payroll domain. All of our screens faced away from everybody.
That's right.
We were the people that were never invited to the party socially or at work.
Yeah,
it is the way. And we're seen to be quite miserable, which I don't really think is the fact. We are so busy making sure that this big magic red button that doesn't exist gets pressed so that everybody gets paid. It's full on all the time. And that's the way it is. So I want people to talk about PayPal. I want people to realize what goes into it. And there are very few voices in payroll at this moment in time who are telling people how difficult it is. I have lots of conversations because within my current role, I don't do payroll. I haven't done payroll for a number of years. I sit within brand and communications in marketing. I get to talk about payroll every single day of the week, which is absolutely fantastic. I get to put out a huge amount of content in terms of blogs and articles and that kind of thing. And it is what people want to hear.
Yep.
Payrollers, if you've been within a single business for a long period of time, I think people get set in their ways. They accept and tolerate what they've got. The only people that they complain to are their families when they go home. I've had a really bad day. You wouldn't believe what I've had to do, but they're not telling their bosses. They're not telling the right kind of stakeholders that there are things that we can all do to improve. Nobody's saying every business in the world has to go out and spend $5 million on the latest, greatest, shiny tool that's out there. There are lots of things that we can do. Defining roles and responsibilities, creating standard operating procedures, current state assessments. You don't know how you can improve if you don't really know what you're working with. And that's one of the big things that really is something that I'm trying to get out there. I've gone into businesses, and within the first 12 weeks, I do a current state assessment. This is what you've got. These are the things that you could be doing. And we start working with them. Lots of people also don't understand that there are, myself, you guys probably as well, and lots of others, look at payroll in terms of its maturity. How mature is it? Lots of payrolls are immature, and that's the first stage. And then you get into reactive. I think the biggest amount of payrolls that there are in this reactive stage. We are firefighting constantly. We work from one cycle to the next without improving, because we have to go back to the last thing that we were doing before we had to go and fix that fence and everything else. Trying to get to a controlled payroll is where you need to be getting. And then the gold standard, a strategic payroll. We have the ability within payroll to drive businesses. Where else in a business can you get the information that payroll has? HR, hand it to payroll, but it's not complete at that point in time. We run the gross to net calculations and everything in between. We are best placed to advise businesses on the direction of where they want to go.
That's absolutely right. I love it. Right. You have to go on record. And now I think folks get tired of hearing me, because I've actually said this very recently, the maturity part. And I know the boss I said it to was a little uncomfortable when I said it. I said, hey, this payroll process is very immature. And I know he was uncomfortable because it was his baby for a bit, but it was okay. We worked it out and we grew and we were able to improve. And I mean, I love what you're saying, because you're right. It's maturity. It's being stuck in reactionary cycles where you're only reacting. You're only putting out fires. There's some days where we're only firemen. And the gold standard is strategically processing payroll. Man, I love it, man. Thank you so much.
It is, absolutely. I mean, I've presented this to clients as well as prospective clients. It is quite provocative, but it's provocative in a good way. You would think that it would really not be what they're wanting to hear. It would be quite detrimental to the conversation that you're having. But I actually think it's a light bulb moment. And I hate the term journey because it sounds American Idol and it sounds X Factor, but you do actually realize at that point in time how far you've got to go. And it's not until then you realize that we are doing this, we should be doing that, we're not doing that, and we've not considered it. I had a conversation with somebody not very long ago, and they were actually taking a business case to their stakeholders. And I said, have you considered this? Have you thought about doing that? And I gave them ideas that they'd not thought about. And it, again, just going back to having the right conversations with the right people at the right point in time is really important. For me, if you're trying to build something, discovery is the biggest phase. If you don't get it right, you are never going to end up with the product that you want or that you deserve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, so then what do you think is right with payroll that we can leverage and to build our business cases, to push our business cases along?
So I think that the pandemic was absolutely horrible for so many people on so many different reasons, but it has bred technology like we have never seen before. It's been absolutely great. Businesses have had to step up to the plate, and they have had to deliver to their employees in a different kind of way than ever before. you can take the logistics side of making sure that people are able to work at home, but offering them a different back office service and function is completely different. The amount of technology that has come out of that is just completely unprecedented. We've been working with systems, that have been out there for a very long period of time. If you take payments, for example, payroll payments were never really intended to actually go through the banking system or anything like that. There are lots of different ways of doing that now, and I work with a business that is spearheading the way that we actually pay people from the very, very beginning of the employee experience, the onboarding, all the way through to the payment side of things in a single platform. No additional handoffs, no additional third parties, no cross-border complications, no currency issues, and all of those kind of things. This form of technology is definitely where we are heading now. And the problem with that is not everybody is investing in it for a couple of reasons. They're holding on to the past.
Yep.
They're not talking to the right people about what is out there, and there is a fear of change.
Yeah.
Payrollers can be skeptical dinosaurs.
For sure.
I've been there myself. We do not like change. Payroll implementation it's not a small something. It's something that needs to be considered with a huge amount of thought, particularly when you start getting into the larger populations. These projects are multifunctional, can take a huge period of time to come to reality. And at the same point in time, it's probably the poor payroller that has got to do their BAU job as well as lead a very large part of that implementation, because we don't backfill. It's about time we actually learn to backfill implementation.
Yes. Those are things I preach all the time. And you're so right. I'm a victim of being, what did you say, a payroll skeptical dinosaur. And because we're in a situation where we're doing the opposite. We're going to two system setup, an HCM and a payroll system. And immediately I was like, oh, this is wrong. And I had to pull myself back and say, hey, no, there's a lot of companies that still do this. So let's go ahead and do it right. We're going to do something, do it right. A thought that I've been working with recently is how you do anything is how you do everything. So if I'm going to approach this right, so why wouldn't I do this right? So yeah, man, I love the insights, Ian. Thank you very much for this, man. Now, okay, so what obstacles are in our way then from getting to this mature point?
I think there are several things that are getting in our way. One of them is this fear of change, and we've got to get around that. It goes back to, this is what we know. We don't complain. We're quite happy with what we're putting up with, but I don't think anybody really is. We need to increase the conversation about what is out there, what we can do. There are lots of groups, forums, and communities where we should be talking about what is the best of breed. I'm a very firm believer that there isn't a single solution out there for every business in the world, and that every business is totally different, but there are elements that you can take out of the good and apply them to what you're doing. Going back to the payroll maturity level, we have these 4 stages, but there are some businesses that kind of like breach 2 or 3 of the different things. They might not be controlled in the way that they are advancing every single payroll cycle and the knowledge that the payroll team have got, but they are great in terms of the fact that they have a much smaller amount of partners and handoffs and those kind of things. You can have a payroll that's very much reactive, but they are doing one or two things that are in the great thing. To me, that gold standard of payroll means you have shaved time off your processes, you have improved the knowledge within your business, you are working with partners and not vendors, which is really important.
Yes.
So we can all sell something, but can you work with somebody who is going to advise you, somebody who is going to tell you that something is happening in the world of payroll that will affect you? That's how you lead change. When you get to this point, to this gold standard, you should be able to add value to your business that you've never done before. I worked with somebody quite recently, and I believe the gold standard, them knowing that they've reached every single point and tick list item, is that at the end of every single payroll cycle, they can open up a Zoom conversation to everybody in the business, that somebody at the end of the payroll team sits there and just waits for somebody to ask them a question. If you've got that much time at the end of your payroll cycle to commit to an open question forum, you've made it.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
that's great. That's great.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned something, 4 stages. What did you mean by that? The 4 stages of payroll, or?
No, the 4 stages of payroll maturity. So you, like we've said already, you have the reactive stage, you have the immature stage, you have the reactive stage, you have controlled, and you have gold standard, which is strategic.
Got it.
As you improve your payroll processes, your knowledge within the department, you shave time off the things that you don't need to do. Looking at KPIs and payroll metrics is a great way of getting to where you want to be. How much of your payroll is single and first-time approval? Going backwards and forwards between different parts of the business and third-party providers is time-consuming. You get all of those data points and all of that data right at the very first instance, it comes back to you, you go, yeah, that's exactly what it wants to be. You've taken away so much time within that payroll process. Errors per 1,000 pay slips, time to process. And one of the other big things that I'm very keen on is supplementary payroll. How much of everything have you gotten right is to such an extent that you don't need to do supplementary payroll runs. Everything that you do after the money has hit the employee's bank account eats into your next payroll cycle.
That's right.
Yes, that's
right.
correct. Man,
Yes.
you're such a wealth of knowledge. One of the many things that stuck out to me, you said the words, what adds value? That's something that Brian has always challenged me on. How does this add value? You have these great ideas, you're coming with me with you have the business case. And how does this improve the company and our processes and our payroll? We can have all these bright ideas, but if it doesn't help and it just bogs things down and makes things more cumbersome.
Totally. It becomes a frustration. We've all got good ideas, and every payroller that I've ever met has got good intention. We know we never, ever want to not pay somebody on time, every single time, and accurately. That's our job. That's payroll's mission, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
To pay everybody accurately, on time, every single time. When you get to global payroll, it becomes even more important, but it becomes even more complicated. The value adding that I'm talking about is the things that you want to get to, but you can't because you're bogged down in the detail. Technology is changing the way that we are able to process, but there are elements of payroll that are repetitive, and we know that they have to happen every single time. Why does a human need to do them? That's not the case. We can get to that. One of the greatest ways that we can actually get to adding value before the fact is real-time data insights. Payroll reporting has always been after the fact. It's old news then, you know, it's not going to tell you anything other than what has happened. How about I give you the ability to tell you what your payroll costs are going to be in 10 days? How about I tell you that your costs have gone up in China by X, Y, and Z percentage, and this is the reason why? If we can provide a business with information as it's happening, it can lead us all in all kinds of directions.
Yes, that would be game changing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now tell me, can we ask about Papaya Global? What's Papaya Global about?
So Papaya Global, we are a fintech business. We offer the ability to pay all employment types in over 160 countries.
Wow.
We have just recently created a HCM connector, which enables data in all kinds of fashions, from HCM to HRIS and any kind of Excel spreadsheet that you can imagine, to be absorbed. So we are reducing the amount of time it takes to get your data from one place to another. It's great. The Payroll OS is a new something and has the ability for us to provide payroll services in a single platform, as I said, from onboarding all the way through to payments. We provide businesses with the ability to use their existing partners if they wish, and actually manage that relationship for them.
Oh, wow.
If you're in 40 countries, for example, and you have 5 fantastic ICPs that you want to continue to work with, we can manage that. We have our own ICPs that we work with, who are experts and are fantastic in knowing the legislation within the countries that you as a business would operate in. I've known Papaya for a couple of years, had the opportunity to join them a little while ago, had a conversation with the CEO towards the back end of last year. Timing was absolutely fantastic, and I find myself here in a business that is leading the way in terms of what payroll technology should look like. Like I've said earlier, we have been working with legacy systems and legacy tools. It is about time, as payrollers, we worked with payroll tech. Let's work with tools that are built for our roles, for our purposes, that enable us to get, again, back to these value-adding activities.
Yep.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. And now, 2 more questions before we let you go, Ian. I noticed on your LinkedIn that you had a degree from Worcester for payroll management. Is that right?
Yes. So in 2015 and 16, I took a payroll degree through the Chartered Institution of Payroll Professionals, which is a chartered institution in
I'm familiar.
UK.
Yep.
So I managed to not have to do the first year of the degree because of the experience that I got within the industry. So yeah, with a full-time job, growing children, I decided to take a degree.
That's cool. I love it.
Felt like a fantastic idea at the point in time that I did that. But yeah, it's opened doors. It's really interesting because you not only do you get to kind of see what's going on within payroll, there is a very large element of the soft skills. I wrote an article for LinkedIn not a million years ago about the essential skills for payroll professionals. Everybody thinks we're moving data around the place and getting people paid, but we are project managers. We herd cats. We do all kinds of things that people don't understand and appreciate. We're also people leaders and all of those kind of things as well. So this was a great something. I sat exams, I wrote papers, I did a dissertation at the end.
Nice.
And a lot of the people that I'm connected to have the same qualification. It is a great opportunity to learn a more in-depth side of payroll.
That's right. Something we're advocating for and looking into on the US side. That's why I was curious, because we don't yet have a payroll degree program in the US. So I'm excited to see that it is happening. And always been looking at the UK and Australia. You guys are progressive with payroll, and it's so amazing. And honestly, we're following the lead. So please keep it up. Please contribute. Please keep contributing. You're one of our idols. We follow you in this game as well. So we're, again, honored to have you. And then before we go, what we'd love to ask our payroll folks is, what advice would you give if there's one little nugget you had to give to a payroller? What would you leave them with?
without making a bad name or a reputation for yourself. That's not what you want to do. It's not going to get you into a good place, but you have to speak out. We've said this already. We will not change anything unless we are having the conversations that people fear. Payroll will not advance without technology, and it will not advance without people that are talking about it. The payroll industry is changing. I'm not leaving today or tomorrow or in the very, very near future.
That's right.
But there are people that are leaving the industry. There are people that are coming into the industry, and they need to know where they can find the right resources, the right people to speak to. And it is all out there. I'm also a mentor for the Global Payroll Association, and I've been one since the back end of last year. That's also a great opportunity to learn from people who have been in the industry for a long period of time. I mentor somebody who has just started out in their payroll career. They come from an accounting background and have had their first payroll thrown at them. That happens quite a lot, you know, particularly when you're talking about merger and acquisition. You inherit something that you know nothing about. It could be that the business who you work for has acquired a company with 10 countries you've never done payroll in before. I'm also mentoring somebody who is in the international space and is doing a slightly different role to business as usual. I'm also mentoring somebody who has been in payroll for 17 years or so, but wants to know what that next step is. There are lots of us about that are doing this kind of mentorship. It doesn't necessarily have to be through a program that is as great as the GPA. But what I do find is, unless you're actually talking to people that are in the payroll industry, you're not getting the same kind of mentorship. There's lots of businesses that have that kind of program, and they can tell you how to advance within that business and apply different kind of rules and logic. But you need to speak to somebody that's worn the t-shirt and all of that kind of stuff as well.
I love it. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how many things you've said that just resonate with us and hit home for us. Thank you so much again, Ian, for taking the time out today to talk to us in the community. With that being said, we'll bid you adieu, and we thank you for your time. You have a outlet here all the time. Open door policy for you, sir.
As Arnold said, I'll be back.
That's right. Perfect, man. Perfect. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Absolutely. All right, Bo. Thank you, Walt.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to It's About Payroll. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep going.